At night, palaces hide secrets too dark to imagine. Innocence vanishes behind closed doors, screams echo in silence. Fear is law, survival is a gamble, and betrayal lurks everywhere. The empire's grandeur masks horrors no one dares remember. Curiosity can be deadly. Step closer if you dare. In the heart of the empire, where shadows cling to every corner and opulence masks 1,000 untold horrors, lived a young soul whose life was destined to intersect with secrets that most could never imagine. Born into a modest family on the edge of the capital, the main character moved through the labyrinthine streets with eyes wide to the world, absorbing the stark contrasts of their surroundings. The glittering palaces of the elite rising above, the cramped narrow alleys of the commoners, the scent of spices and roasted meats mingling with the stench of refuse and decay. Their days were spent navigating these opposing worlds, balancing the necessity of survival with the natural curiosity that burned quietly within, a curiosity the empire punished as often as it nurtured. From an early age, they had learned the value of caution, the importance of silent observation, and the weight of a single misstep in a society that measured obedience as strictly as it measured wealth and bloodline. Though seemingly ordinary in appearance, their mind was restless, constantly questioning the disparity between the public grandeur and the hidden darkness that seeped into every shadowed alley, every whispering corridor, every gilded hall. Life in this empire was a careful dance, where even the smallest action could ripple outward with consequences no one could foresee. The main character watched neighbors vanish without explanation, families grieve in silence, and friends falter under pressures they could barely comprehend. Yet even amidst the fear and the invisible chains of oppression, sparks of resilience emerged. Moments of small rebellion, a glance held too long, a word thought too loud, a question posed in defiance of the rules, revealed glimpses of courage that the empire sought to suppress. They noticed patterns where others saw chaos, subtle signs of injustice hidden in the everyday, the way enforcers lingered near certain doors, the way servants whispered hurriedly when the elite passed, the quick, fearful glances exchanged by those who had learned to measure every expression. In these observations, the main character sensed not just danger but opportunity, a chance to understand the mechanisms of control, the secret currents of power, and the ways in which fear could be both a tool and a weapon. Even within the safety of their modest home, tension pulsed quietly beneath the surface. Every sound outside the window, the clatter of horse hooves on cobblestone, the distant echo of a shouted command, the muffled cries from somewhere deep within the palace walls, served as a reminder that security was an illusion and curiosity could be fatal. The main character's nights were restless, filled with the vivid images of hidden corridors, locked doors, and the faint, almost imperceptible traces of suffering that no one else acknowledged. They began to question the structures around them, the unspoken rules, the selective mercy and cruelty that defined life in the empire. Every observation, every fleeting glimpse of injustice intensified an internal fire, a need to know, to see beyond the masks, to uncover the truths the powerful desperately sought to conceal. And though the shadows threatened constantly, whispering caution and fear, the young soul's curiosity persisted, stubborn and insistent, hinting at a destiny that would soon pull them into the very heart of darkness they had been quietly watching. All along, the empire itself was a living paradox, a realm where beauty and terror coexisted in unnerving harmony, and where every corner held both splendor and subtle menace. Towering palaces crowned the city like frozen flames, their marble columns gleaming under the sun by day and glowing faintly by lantern light at night. Yet behind each ornate doorway lay secrets that whispered of cruelty and fear. The streets teemed with life, yet even the bustling marketplaces carried an undercurrent of caution, for merchants and citizens alike knew that appearances were a currency as valuable and as dangerous as gold. Those who prospered openly were often rewarded not for virtue but for their ability to navigate the invisible lines drawn by power, lines so strict that even a misstep, however minor, could vanish a family or condemn an individual to the empire's hidden horrors. Social hierarchy was absolute. and the divisions between the elite and the ordinary, between those whose lives mattered and those whose lives were disposable, were enforced with precision and relentless efficiency. Every street and courtyard told stories of both opulence and oppression. Servants moved swiftly through shadowed corridors, their steps measured, eyes alert to every command or unspoken expectation. Children played cautiously, aware that curiosity might draw attention, and neighbors exchanged hushed warnings rather than greetings. Even the most mundane events carried consequences. A merchant's slight misjudgment in trading with the wrong patron could mean financial ruin, or worse. Rumors traveled faster than official decrees, and gossip often carried more weight than law itself. And yet, amidst these strictures, the main character observed patterns others ignored. The way certain guards lingered near particular homes, the hurried whispers of women carrying baskets through the narrow alleys, the careful, almost ritualized routines that hid both fear and survival. Through these subtle observations, they began to sense the true shape of the empire's power. A combination of spectacle, fear, and secrets, maintained not just through force, but through the calculated erosion of trust, courage, and hope. But, even as the young observer learned to navigate these complexities, danger remained ever present, lurking beneath the glittering veneer. A carriage that appeared ordinary could conceal enforcers ready to strike. A celebration in the palace might hide a sinister agenda, and a simple glance at the wrong person could mark someone for disappearance. The empire's cruelty was rarely blatant. It preferred the quiet, slow, insidious kind that unravels lives without witnesses, leaving only empty homes, whispers of vanished souls, and a lingering, unshakable fear. And yet, the main character could not ignore it. With every subtle injustice noticed, every minor cruelty witnessed, their awareness deepened, and so did the tension in their chest, a mixture of dread, fascination, and a growing, irresistible urge to uncover what lay behind. The gilded facades. Each day the empire revealed just enough to frighten, to control, and to tease, but never enough to satisfy the hunger for truth, ensuring that curiosity became both a guiding light and a dangerous temptation, one that could carry them closer to unimaginable horrors than they had ever imagined. Despite their careful navigation of streets and courtyards, the main character could not escape the subtle yet relentless grip of the empire's control. Each day brought new signs of injustice, neighbors disappearing without explanation, a family suddenly shunned for the slightest perceived offense, whispers of punishment executed in secret corridors. These events were never openly acknowledged. The powerful ensured that fear remained invisible yet omnipresent, a constant pulse under the surface of daily life. And yet, curiosity had a way of piercing the carefully maintained veil. The young observer noticed things others ignored, a door that remained locked for days, servants moving with urgent secrecy, fleeting shadows that suggested hidden activities far from the public eye. With each discovery came a mixture of dread and fascination, an irresistible pull toward the truths the empire desperately concealed. Personal stakes began to emerge as the main character witnessed the human cost of obedience and defiance. Friend's reckless question brought swift punishment. A sibling narrowly escaped a disappearance. A neighbor's silent suffering left an indelible mark on the young mind. These events planted seeds of tension, forcing the character to confront a fundamental question: how much risk was worth seeking the truth? The answers were unclear, and yet the consequences of inaction were equally harrowing. Each decision, each moment of hesitation or boldness, carried the weight of life and death, shaping a path that would inevitably lead deeper into the empire's darkest corners. The very act of observing, of questioning, became a gamble, one where curiosity might illuminate the horrors behind the gilded facades, but might also summon dangers far beyond comprehension. As days and nights blurred under the empire's omnipresent gaze, subtle signs of a larger, more insidious power began to surface. Whispers of forbidden chambers, secret gatherings, and rituals conducted beyond the reach of law and conscience threaded through the character's understanding of the city. Small encounters, an enforcer's sharp stare, a hurried exchange between servants, the sudden hush that fell over a courtyard, hinted at invisible forces orchestrating terror with meticulous precision. These glimpses of danger sparked an internal struggle. The desire to uncover the truth clashed with the instinct for self-preservation. The tension became unbearable and yet irresistible. The Empire's secrets called to the main character with a magnetic, almost malevolent pull. It was clear that the journey they were about to undertake would demand courage, cunning, and the willingness to confront horrors that the world had buried under centuries of fear and silence. Each observation, each moment of awareness, now served as both preparation and warning, shaping a trajectory that could not be reversed, setting the stage for the relentless escalation that awaited in the rising action. The city, once a backdrop of cautious observation and whispered fears, now felt like a living web of danger, each street and alley pulsating with the silent threat of power wielded without conscience. The main character moved with heightened awareness, every glance over the shoulder, and every subtle sound magnified by the knowledge that mistakes could vanish lives. Markets teemed with hushed anxiety, merchants calculating risks with each transaction, children learning quickly the art of silence, and servants passing coded gestures to warn of unexpected enforcers. The Empire's machinery of control had become impossible to ignore. Nothing remained abstract. Oppression was visible in the taut lines of guards' faces, audible in the sudden hush that fell when noble carriages passed, tangible in the trembling hands of those forced to submit to whims that could destroy them in an instant. Every encounter became a test of instinct. The main character witnessed acts that blurred the line between governance and cruelty. A noble punishing a servant for an imagined slight, families relocated without explanation, the fearful obedience of neighbors hinting at punishments unspoken, yet vividly understood. The consequences of curiosity became increasingly clear. Every observation, every decision held stakes more severe than any previous experience, and the young observer began to realize that knowledge itself carried danger. Even seemingly mundane details, the timing of guards' patrols, the way servants avoided certain doors, the whispered names of vanished citizens, were clues to an underlying network of control, fear, and injustice that had gone unnoticed for centuries. Tension mounted as the main character began to piece together patterns that others dismissed as coincidence or rumor. Hidden chambers, secret decrees, and punishments concealed behind the Empire's magnificent facade hinted at a deeper, more deliberate design. Fear and fascination intertwined. The more they saw, the more the Empire's cruelty revealed itself, and the more impossible it seemed to look away. Private acts of terror, punishments carried out in silence, the calculated humiliation of innocence and the erasure of voices that dared question authority, spoke to a system meticulously crafted to suppress, terrify, and dominate. And yet, amid this darkness, curiosity persisted, an irresistible flame that refused to be extinguished. Every revelation became a step deeper into the shadowed heart of the Empire, each encounter a thread, pulling the main character into the web of injustice, setting the stage for confrontations and horrors that would test courage, morality, and survival itself. The subtle threads of fear that had always shadowed the main character's life now tightened into a suffocating grip, as the abstract machinery of oppression revealed its lethal precision. What had once been distant whispers became undeniable evidence. Neighbors disappeared in the dead of night, entire households wiped from memory, and rumors circulated of punishment so cruel they defied comprehension. The main character could no longer remain a mere observer. The Empire's injustices were no longer faceless. They touched their friends, their family, and themselves. Every cautious step through the streets carried a heightened awareness of potential catastrophe, a recognition that even the smallest curiosity, even the briefest glance at the wrong corridor, could summon consequences that were irreversible. Fear, once a distant companion, had become a constant living presence, whispering in every shadow, lurking in every flicker of lantern light. The Empire's cruelty revealed itself not only in vanished citizens, but in more insidious ways. Silent punishments inflicted on those who dared to speak, subtle humiliations meant to erode dignity, and arbitrary decrees that turned daily life into a minefield. The main character watched friends falter under pressure, witnessing their courage crushed or redirected by the invisible hand of authority. Every observation sharpened the understanding that the empire's control was absolute, yet meticulously hidden, a darkness operating in plain sight while the public eye remained distracted by spectacle and ceremony. Patterns emerged in the chaos, rituals of dominance, carefully orchestrated displays of fear, and secret mechanisms ensuring compliance that were nearly impossible to trace, let alone challenge. Each revelation deepened the sense of dread and fascination, a dangerous combination that propelled the main character further into the empire's shadowed heart. And yet, despite the rising peril, curiosity persisted. The main character found themselves drawn to forbidden corners and whispered rumors, compelled by a relentless need to understand the mechanisms of power and cruelty that governed life with such terrifying efficiency. Each discovery revealed more than just injustice. It illuminated the systematic design behind the empire's oppression, the deliberate use of fear, the calculated removal of dissent, and the hidden indulgences of those in authority. With every step closer to the truth, the dangers multiplied, and the stakes became personal. Survival was no longer guaranteed. Morality became a perilous choice and courage a double-edged sword. The empire's darkness was now immediate, personal, and inescapable, setting the stage for confrontations that would test resolve, expose vulnerability, and push the main character toward choices that could change everything or destroy everything they held dear. The main character could no longer remain on the periphery of the empire's darkness. The shadows had begun to close in, transforming distant fear into immediate peril. Streets that once offered cautious passage now felt like traps. Corridors that appeared innocuous concealed eyes that watched, waiting for any sign of curiosity, hesitation, or defiance. Each encounter became a test of instinct, and every decision held consequences that rippled outward unpredictably. An innocent misstep, a glance at a guarded chamber, a fleeting interaction with a servant who lingered too long, could ignite a chain of events from which escape was impossible. The invisible threads of the empire's control tightened around the main character, leaving no room for error, no space for doubt. Anxiety became a constant companion, yet it was matched by a compelling drive, the need to understand, to see, to uncover the truths that the powerful had labored to bury. The injustices became more personal, more visceral. Families were torn apart not by chance but by deliberate cruelty. Friends disappeared under orders that never reached public record, their absence leaving only whispers and terrified speculation. The main character witnessed these disappearances firsthand, observed the hollowed eyes of those left behind, the trembling hands of those forced to comply, the subtle, perfidious ways in which the empire exacted obedience. And yet, amid this suffocating oppression, sparks of defiance flickered. A whispered conversation, a stolen glance into forbidden halls, a carefully concealed act of rebellion. Each moment was perilous, yet it illuminated a truth the empire could not entirely suppress. That courage, though fragile, persisted even in the most oppressive circumstances. As the tension escalated, the main character began to perceive the full scope of the empire's cruelty. It was not merely the absence of justice, but the deliberate orchestration of terror, humiliation, and control. Secret chambers, whispered rituals, and acts of unrecorded violence formed an invisible architecture of fear that dominated every facet of life. Awareness became both weapon and liability. The more they saw, the greater the risk, and yet the need to see could not be denied. The city itself seemed to pulse with the presence of these hidden horrors, every flicker of torchlight and every shadowed corner a reminder that danger was omnipresent. With curiosity and courage now inextricably linked to peril, the main character stood at the threshold of revelation, their journey plunging deeper into the empire's heart of darkness, where moral choices, survival, and the exposure of unimaginable secrets would collide with a force that threatened to overwhelm everything. They had known. The walls that had once concealed terror now seemed to close in with suffocating inevitability, and the main character stood at the epicenter of the empire's darkest heart. Every step forward carried the weight of countless vanished lives, every shadow a witness to unspeakable acts that had been hidden behind the empire's opulent facade. The air itself seemed charged with dread, thick with the echoes of screams and the palpable fear that had accumulated over generations. There was no longer room for cautious observation. The horrors could no longer be glimpsed from a safe distance. Now they surged forward, relentless and undeniable, demanding acknowledgement. In hidden chambers and secret halls, the most intimate acts of cruelty unfolded with precision, orchestrated by those whose power was absolute and whose conscience had long since been silenced. The main character saw it all: the manipulation, the fear, the deliberate devastation inflicted upon the innocent, and the scope of the empire's darkness became a living, breathing force, as oppressive and omnipresent as the very walls around them. Every revelation was a blow to the senses, each discovery compounding the weight of helplessness and outrage. Faces once familiar now carried the marks of complicity, the silent approval of acts too cruel to witness, yet too systematic to ignore. The main character felt the dizzying pull of fear, fascination and moral obligation, each vying for dominance in the heart and mind. Survival had never been more tenuous. One misstep could be fatal, one glance could provoke irreversible consequences. And yet, the need to understand, to confront, to bear witness, to see the truth that had been buried for generations, was irresistible. It was a perilous balance, to look, to comprehend, and perhaps to survive, all while the weight of the empire's cruelty pressed like a living, tangible force against every nerve. Time seemed to fracture under the intensity of revelation. Moments stretched, elongated by the horror and magnitude of what unfolded before them. Hidden chambers revealed secrets of manipulation, of suffering wrought for pleasure and control, of innocence violated with chilling deliberation. Every corridor, every locked door, every silent corner was a testament to the empire's calculated dominion over human life. The main character's resolve hardened even as dread mounted. The truth must be seen, the hidden exposed, no matter the personal cost. In that moment, the empire was no longer an abstract construct of fear. It was alive, palpable, and pressing directly against them, and there was no retreat. The darkness of the empire had fully revealed itself now, leaving no room for denial or hesitation. Every corridor echoed with the weight of unspeakable acts. Every shadow hinted at cruelty, meticulously orchestrated by those who held absolute power. The main character moved through this labyrinth of terror with a heart pounding in both fear and defiance, each step a test of courage against a system designed to annihilate hope. Here punishment was both art and weapon. Every scream, every act of subjugation had been executed with deliberate precision, a demonstration of power meant to remind all who dared observe that no one could challenge the empire unscathed. The sights and sounds, once abstract rumors, were now visceral, undeniable and suffocating. The very air seemed to press against their chest, thick with oppression. The cries of the tormented etched into walls that had grown almost alive with centuries of suffering. Faces of the oppressed flickered through memory. The vanished neighbors, the silenced friends, the trembling families, each a reminder of what obedience demanded, of what curiosity risked, and of the price of truth in a world ruled by fear. The main character's moral compass, once guided by instinctive curiosity, now strained under the enormity of the revelations. To turn away would be to ignore the injustice, but to remain fully aware was to risk destruction. The tension between survival and conscience became unbearable, every heartbeat a reminder that knowledge carried as much danger as power. And yet, even amidst the overwhelming horror, a resolute clarity emerged, understanding the full scope of cruelty was not merely an act of observation, it was a moral obligation. Every hidden chamber, every ritual of control, every orchestrated act of suffering converged into a single, undeniable truth. The empire's oppression was deliberate, systematic, and profoundly personal. The main character felt the oppressive weight of centuries pressing down, a tidal wave of fear, despair, and revelation that threatened to crush the soul. Yet within this maelstrom, a spark of determination ignited. a recognition that bearing witness, even in the face of unimaginable darkness, was the first step toward resistance, understanding, and perhaps eventual justice. The empire's heart of cruelty had been laid bare, and the main character now stood at the threshold of choice: flee, survive, or confront the unimaginable truth that had always lurked behind gilded facades. Every instinct screamed for caution, yet every revelation demanded courage, pushing the story toward its inevitable resolution and leaving the audience suspended in relentless anticipation. In the aftermath of the confrontation, the main character emerged forever changed, their perception of the empire and its hidden horrors indelibly marked by what they had witnessed. The gilded facades that once symbolized grandeur now appeared as masks, concealing centuries of orchestrated cruelty and oppression. Though the immediate danger had passed, the weight of knowledge persisted, settling like a shadow over every thought, every movement. The empire remained vast and powerful, its mechanisms of control still intact, yet for the first time, the main character understood the subtle architecture of fear, obedience, and secrecy that sustained it. Every whispered rule, every hidden punishment, every carefully concealed atrocity now had meaning, and each insight revealed the delicate balance between survival and morality, between complicity and defiance. The personal cost of this understanding was profound. The main character's innocence, once unquestioning, had been irrevocably altered by the reality of systemic cruelty. Yet, within the horror, a fragile clarity emerged. Awareness itself was a form of resistance. By seeing, by remembering, by understanding, they could navigate the shadows not as a passive observer, but as someone capable of choice, capable of influence, capable of challenging the patterns of fear that had dominated countless lives. The core, empire's oppression, while unrelenting, was no longer inscrutable. Its methods were exposed to the eyes that dared to look, and that knowledge, though dangerous, was power. As the city hummed with the illusion of normalcy, the main character carried within them both the scars and the insights of what they had endured. The story of what lay hidden behind the empire's beauty served as a haunting reminder. Cruelty often wears the mask of order. Oppression hides beneath. Ceremony and innocence can be erased silently, without witness. Yet the choice to observe, to question, and to confront the invisible chains that govern human lives remained a spark of defiance that no fear could extinguish. And so, in the silence that followed the storm, one question lingered, unspoken but impossible to ignore. When the darkness is hidden behind grandeur and the powerful enforce obedience with terror, how far would one go to seek the truth, and at what cost? Though the main character stepped back into the world that appeared unchanged, the experience had carved permanent awareness into their soul. The empire's splendor remained, glittering and untouchable to the casual observer, but behind every ornate archway and golden chamber lay the echoes of injustice, cruelty, and the deliberate silencing of the innocent. The lessons of survival, vigilance, and moral courage were now etched into their consciousness. Knowledge could protect, understanding could empower, and bearing witness was itself a rebellion against the forces that sought to dominate. Each choice from this moment forward carried the weight of what they had seen, and every decision became a reflection of the tension between fear and conscience, between submission and defiance. The empire's darkness had not been vanquished. It persisted, hidden, pervasive, and patient, but the main character had glimpsed its inner workings, seen its strategies, and endured its most intimate horrors. In doing so, they became both observer and participant, a living testament to the truth that the unseen atrocities of power demand recognition. The story left an indelible question hanging in the minds of all who followed it. In a world where cruelty is masked by grandeur and fear governs obedience, will one remain a silent witness or dare to confront the shadows, knowing that even survival may come at a steep cost? The empire endures, the darkness remains, yet awareness, the spark of curiosity and courage, lingers, a fragile but unyielding light in the heart of oppression, leaving the audience both haunted and compelled to reflect on what they would do if faced with similar hidden horrors.